1. I've only told this to a few people outside my family, and I only recently started talking about it. I wish I'd told someone sooner, as I discovered a co-worker encountered these men as well. I work downtown, standard 8 to 5 hours. Once in a while I work overtime, but not often. And not on the day this happened. It was just a couple minutes after 5 p.m. when I left work. It's just a few blocks from my office building to the train station. There are a few bars and back alleys along the walk, but the worst I've dealt with along there are homeless folks who get a little aggressive asking for cash. They don't bother me much. The train ride from the station downtown to the station where I park my car is about 40 minutes. If I'm lucky, I manage to get a seat and don't have to stand for the whole ride. On that day, I was lucky, more or less. I get a seat next to a window, which left the seat next to me open. At the next stop, 3 men got on. One of them sat next to me and the others sat on the seats across from me, so they were facing me. I was listening to music on my iPod, so I couldn't really hear them. I did notice, however, that the guy sitting next to me was trying to move closer to me on the seat. He would move close enough that his leg was touching mine, so I'd scoot away and he'd move closer again. Eventually, I was pressed right against the window, and had no doubt that he had more than a few inches of free space on his other side. I was wearing sunglasses and could surreptitiously glance at them. I noticed that they would occasionally say something, then all look at me. It was all incredibly creepy and uncomfortable. I was nervous about getting off at my stop, but mine is the second to last on the train line. So when the train pulled into my station, I got off. The guy sitting next to me tried to grab my arm, but I was moving quickly and able to get out. I was hoping they wouldn't get off the train there. It was a busy station and they couldn't know where I was parked. They did. I guess it was their luck that they targeted me. I park in the furthest lot from the station because the parking there is free. It's about a 7-minute walk, which is usually too bad, but my lot tends to be pretty quiet, and I was really worried about those guys following me. As a bit of background, I was fat. I work an office job and I was sitting all day and not working out. Add to that my strong sweet tooth and you've got a recipe for bad body. I was about 30 pounds overweight and probably couldn't run more than 30 seconds. Sad, considering I ran track and played hockey in high school. I still play hockey, but on a women's daytime league and it's not really competitive. I'm the youngest on my team by about 20 years, but my mom is on the team and it's something fun to do together. I was crossing the bridge over the road from the station to the parking lots when I noticed the 3 guys less than 10 feet behind me. I wasn't carrying a knife, though I do own a legal-size knife, nor any pepper spray because it's illegal in my Canadian city. I know a little bit about personal protection though. Required class for girls at the private high school I attended in my youth. So I put my car key and my house key between my fingers, so if I needed to hit someone, it would hurt them, at least a little. The guys followed me across the main lot. They didn't hide the fact that they were there, and the more nervous I was, the louder they laughed. I managed to get across the road between the lots before they got to the road. They had to wait for a couple of cars to pass before they could cross. I was almost halfway across the lot when they crossed the road. I started to run. I could hear their feet pounding pavement behind me. I used my clicker to unlock my car when I got close. I wrenched the door open, so glad there was no one parked next to me. I had barely closed my door and slammed the lock when the guys reached my car. They were banging on my windows, yelling, jeering. I'd never been so afraid in my life. I was worried they'd break the windows and get in. There was a guy at the back, banging on the back of my hatchback, so I couldn't reverse out of my spot without running him over. I should have, but I was afraid and not thinking. I was screaming. but no one was around to hear me. I didn't know what they wanted, but I knew it wasn't anything good. I wished I had this screamer my mom had given me for protection, but it needed a new battery, so I didn't bring it with me. That thought, the one about the screamer, made me realize I had something better. When you're being assaulted, you're not supposed to scream for help. No one wants to help. You scream fire because everyone wants to watch the blaze. So I turned on my car alarm. It was incredibly loud in my car. So loud I thought I would go deaf. But it had the reaction I wanted. The guy started backing off. I saw people walking into the lot, looking in the direction of my car. People could see what was going on. The guys took off back towards the train station. I drove home crying. The next night I started working out. I have worked out almost every day since then. If those cars hadn't been in the road at that time, if I'd run just a little slower, if I'd been too slow clicking the lock, it could all have ended so much differently. I've lost 20 pounds since then, and I've gained a great deal of muscle. I quit my job. I've had anxiety issues for years, and this encounter made it so much worse. I never want to feel that powerless again. 2. It's currently 1 a.m. in England, and I had been on the phone with my father from 11:45 p.m. till around 12:10 a.m. I was sat outside with a coffee and sick as usual. I love being outside. I love the night. As a woman of 22 years who is terrified of the dark and has a very active imagination, I seem to enjoy being outside alone at night. There is something magical and calming about it. So anyway, I was on Facebook talking to a friend and listening to music on my phone. Shout out to anyone who likes Five Finger Death Punch. I kept looking up at the stars, so cheesy, but I love space. We have a motion-sensitive light outside the front of the house, where I was sat, and it only stays on for about 1 minute, and after a while I grew tired of standing up to turn it back on, so I stayed seated and put on the torch in my phone, so I wasn't completely blind. Yes, there are street lamps, but where I sit is beside the car and darker than the actual street. 12:30 a.m. rolled around and I was getting tired. I heard the occasional car drive past and it didn't bother me much, as there are a few late-night drivers passing through here. That feeling of peace and calmness suddenly disappeared. I didn't even see the car before I knew something was wrong. I heard a rattling engine coming down the road. I knew it would pass my drive, so I stayed quiet and sat low on the doorstep. Something felt wrong. All of a sudden, this loud, clunky red truck starts to slow down as it gets closer, and then comes into vision as it passed our hedge. Another thing that didn't add up, along with the insane need to turn, was the fact that it was a red truck. I'm not being stereotypical or anything, but it was like something I see in the movies, American movies. Vehicles like this are just not common where I live. Yes, we have trucks and stuff, but it just wasn't familiar or normal for these parts. It was out of place. I didn't know what to do, I just didn't feel right. Before I knew it, the truck had stopped right outside my neighbor's house, and a man slowly opened the driver's side door onto the path. I moved faster than I ever have, and practically threw my coffee all over the floor. I felt sick as I swung the door closed behind me, terrified. I don't judge people by their vehicles or clothes or how they look. However, I have always trusted my senses and gut feelings. It was like slow motion as he climbed out, and I threw myself into the house, still keeping my eyes on him. Obviously, in the few seconds it took for me to stand up and open the door, he heard me and noticed me in the darkness. My fucking torch. Shit. He froze in his steps and our eyes locked. His stare was menacing, and he literally froze in a creepy, crouched sort of tiptoeing position, almost like he'd been caught, but what had I caught him doing? I couldn't lock the door fast enough. I was shaking, so that affected my ability to do anything normally. That gut feeling was so strong I thought I was going to throw up. I finally got the door locked, then turned off all the lights as fast as I could, and quickly ran over to the window. But before I got there, I heard the truck door slam shut, and the man speed away. What the fuck was he doing? What did he want? He was heading towards my neighbor's front door. They are all usually in bed around 11 latest. So I knew it wasn't possible for it to be a friend stopping by. It didn't feel right. That's the only reason I'm so confused and needed to share this, because it doesn't feel right. If it wasn't for my ability to know when something is wrong, I believe I would have stayed outside and possibly asked what he was doing. But I know something was bad about him. I can't deny that sickly feeling I got. I haven't had a feeling that strong in a long time, and I'm not taking it lightly. I might speak to the neighbor tomorrow and ask him if he was expecting anyone last night. So, guy in the red truck, let's not meet. Hey, quick update. I've only just managed to catch my neighbors as they were leaving for the morning. I told them everything. They were shocked, but really grateful I told them. Turns out they were not expecting anyone, and it wasn't a delivery or anything of the sorts, as I suspected anyway. It was all too unusual and too late to be that sort of thing. Where I live is a small village that leads into a larger village, and for some reason, it is perceived as an area in which rich people live. This is not the case. So the neighbors told me they have security cameras up, and they're going to check them when they return home later. I'm so glad I was outside when it happened. I'm glad they're all okay and nothing was stolen. God only knows what his intentions were, but thankfully he noticed me and shit himself. Goodbye, Mr. in the red truck. Don't fucking come back. I think it's important to always listen to your gut feelings, guys. It has never failed me yet. Thank you for reading, and please, stay safe. 3. So when I was just off to college out of high school, I, female and 18 at the time, moved in with a good friend, Karen, 20, and her friend, Tara, 21. We moved to New York City. But as rent is wildly expensive there, we wound up getting an apartment in the shadiest part of Harlem. It was a decent apartment, and the doorman clinched the deal for us. Normally the shady neighborhood was alright, no big deal. We just ignored the catcalls during the day and didn't really leave the apartment at night. However, Tara and I really hit it off from the beginning, and she knew a bunch of fun places to go drinking, where they wouldn't card me in downtown Manhattan. I hadn't been doing that well emotionally lately, and she had decided that I could use a fun night out. So we said screw it, we're going out. Karen was back in our hometown that weekend, though she didn't come with us. We got all dolled up for a night on the town, and wore those stupid heels that we would both later regret. So Tara and I took 2 subway trains to this nice karaoke bar, where really good people get up to perform, and we just watched and enjoyed the drunk theatre people on their night off. Tara had a few drinks, but I had a few more, and I was having a tough time walking in a straight line back to the subway at the end of the night. But we were laughing and really glad that we had gone out. Then we got on the first train home. We were sitting, waiting to reach our stop to transfer, when we both noticed this young guy with his hood up on the other end of the car, a few people down. Now, that's not super unusual for Manhattan, so we just tried to ignore him. But it was a bit awkward as he was staring at us unrelentingly. Again, not super unusual. We were dressed up and some people just stare in the city. No big deal. Ignore them and they go away. So we finally got to our stop, and of course the guy in the hoodie followed us off the train and to the stop for the next one we were catching. Again, we put it down to coincidence. In a city of 8 million people, odds are someone can be going in the same direction you are. Nevertheless, we did keep an eye on him. We didn't want to jump the gun with accusations, but it was starting to feel really off. Just how much he was staring at us. We tried to just mind our own business, particularly as Tara had to keep me from tipping over every so often, which broke the tension and made us laugh for a second. On the next train, we were the only passengers save for one other person, as well as the guy in the hoodie again. We stayed absorbed in each other, giggling over some pictures on Tara's phone, hoping that if we didn't pay attention to him, he would just get his fill of staring and decide he wasn't interested anymore. Especially if we laughed and made it look like we really weren't afraid of him. At one point, though, I glanced back at him, I couldn't help myself, and saw what looked like a piece of metal sticking out of the sleeve of that over-large sweatshirt. He saw me looking, and we looked at each other in the face for maybe a fraction of a second, but the focus of his stare made it feel so long. His gaze was totally calm, just unrelenting. I looked back at Tara and widened my eyes, flicking them towards him in a sort of crap, Tara, look at this guy communication. She did, and I was watching her face the whole time. I saw all the color go out of it as she too spotted what looked like a knife up his sleeve. Tara told me later that they too locked eyes, and she felt everything inside her freeze. I didn't know what to do, as calling the police wasn't going to work just then. In front of this guy in an almost isolated spot, and we were almost at our stop. When we got off, our apartment was about 4 blocks from the subway, so the way I figured it, we had a better chance of getting home than of the police getting to the subway to help us there by the time we pulled into our station. As soon as the car stopped, we got out, and my slightly drunk ass immediately reached down and took off my shoes while still walking towards the stairs to the street. Impressive, I know, thank you. Tara didn't bother, but was already halfway up the stairs. I turned around to see where the hoodie guy had gone, and there he was, walking confidently towards me, eyes deadpan but never moving away from me. I felt like I was going to vomit from fear. My stomach was twisting so much. It suddenly felt like I hadn't had a drop to drink. I ran up the stairs behind Tara, and we both just let loose down the street. My mother had given me pepper spray in a little bottle that looked like lipstick as a housewarming present, so I tried to unzip my purse and get my hand inside while we were running. But it was next to impossible, and it was slowing me down, so I gave up and hoped that I could get it out if he caught us. I looked back again, and of course he was running too. Now his knife was totally out of his hoodie as he pumped his hands. It looked like one of those big switchblades. Totally illegal. I kept glancing back, even though I was running almost full out at this point, trying to keep Tara next to me with her heels still on. Maybe it was just because I was so damn scared at the time, but it seemed like running was nothing to him. He was still so calm and zeroed in on us. He stared straight into my eyes whenever I looked, and had pitched this little half-smile onto his face. Totally calm, not grinning or angry or any kind of emotion I could recognize. Just a sort of casual, "I'm going to catch you, you know," face. We ran past the usual group of homeless guys about halfway to our building. He made some kind of comment I couldn't hear. I assumed they were making fun of us when they saw us running towards them. Me with no shoes on in a really gross part of the city. But I have to wonder whether they helped us by waylaying the guy after, because we managed to get to our building and have the doorman buzz us in with some seconds to spare. We ran panting and half crying to the doorman's desk, staring at the doors the whole time, and had just enough time to start explaining in hysterics that we were being followed when there was a huge rattle at the front doors, and the guy was there, shaking the handles violently, trying to rip them open to get to us. The doorman whipped out his walkie-talkie and yelled at us to go upstairs. We didn't need telling twice. We got in the elevator and held each other, shocked and crying, hearing yelling from outside the elevator fading as we went up to the 3rd floor where our apartment was at. When we got upstairs, we went straight to our balcony, which was on the left side of the building. We had come to the front door from the right, but we thought maybe we could hear something from there. We did. We heard yelling. Just one voice, high for a man's, clear and furiously shouting, "Fuck!" over and over and over. After maybe a minute it stopped, and we couldn't hear anything else. The police showed up shortly afterwards for statements, etc. But as far as I know, they never found the guy. I moved out of the city shortly afterwards for a variety of reasons. My dad still feels bad that he thought Harlem was a nice cheap option. But it's alright. Everything turned out okay and I'm not there anymore. Still, I've always kind of wondered why he followed us all the way from downtown. And why he didn't attack earlier. How we got away exactly. Why he wanted to probably stab us in the first place. And a variety of other things. The cold, detached expression on his face, paired with those intense eyes on mine, has stuck with me ever since. Hey everyone, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 3 True Scary Stories, episode 120. As I said in a previous video, please check the title of the channel, which is Hellfreezer, it shouldn't be anything else, and check that the title of the video matches what I just said at the beginning. If it doesn't say that, this video has been stolen and is reposted on another channel without my permission. Okay, on with the rest of the outro. Now, coming up tomorrow, the 19th, I have the 30 True Scary Stories special. That'll be the 3rd one of those I've done. And hopefully this one's received as well as last time. A good bunch of stories. As I'm actually recording this outro right now, I need about 5 more stories, but I've got all day Saturday and Sunday to work on this video. So I think everything should be okay there. I've actually been sensible this time. I've broken the recording up into 3 lots, so 10, 10, and once I've got the other 5 I need, I'll do the other 10 tomorrow. So that gives me plenty of time to source images, to work on sound, to put my information, my timestamps in, and just to double check everything's okay, to make sure everyone's getting credited, of course. And also gives me plenty of time to perhaps collapse and have a nervous breakdown, just in time for the video going up on Monday. I'd also like to apologise about posting and deleting Friday's video. I'd screwed up the intro, and it was I'd had about 500 views by the time I'd noticed it, and thank you very much to the person who pointed it out. But it was too big a mistake just to leave it, so I had to delete the video and fix that mistake and get it back up. So I'm very sorry for the inconvenience there. But it's up there now, and it seems to be doing okay, so at least it's back. I do usually check this sort of thing, but that's the way it goes. You know, the one time I don't check it is the time I've actually messed it up. There's a lesson in there, and I'm sure one day I will perhaps learn it. Not today, though. No, okay, so I think I'm going to leave you there for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.